In Chapter 6, we're going to dive into a really interesting subject. And it's not one that you've probably heard much about, but it is really an emerging trend that's happening in the industry that you kind of need to be aware of. And it's something that you'll start seeing more and more of as time moves forward. So, as the construction industry has expanded its technology standards to provide online management systems, you're going to find that on many large projects, there's individual management portals in which all subcontractors use as a means of complying with the standards of the general contractor. And to make that in simple terms, what it does is they'll throw up a site and you log into it. So when you want to have an RFI, you type it on into their computer, into their network, and you fill out their form exactly the way they have it on that screen, and that's your RFI process. So it really is a very different world. All of a sudden now the general contractor's got everything already organized in one central computer for every sub on the job. And you've probably seen something similar to it in the old days when people tried to use Prolog, and Primavera has some management tools like that as well. And there's a good 10 or 15 people that are out there using these type of portals and selling them to clients here and there. So it's something that you'll probably run into somewhere along the line as time goes forward. The benefit of it is the general contractor ends up with a beautiful project record. I mean, he knows every RFI, when it was done. So if there's any legal dispute on that job, he's going to know about it. Now, the problem is you're not going to have many copies of any of that stuff. And you're giving the GC all this information, but you don't have copies of it. You're not keeping a record of it. And so when an issue comes up, you're going to have to say, well, I don't know, because you really don't have the paper in front of you in which to substantiate what you did. So on jobs that are like that, you end up creating a paper monster because you end up typing everything and then going and filling it in so you have a copy of it that you submitted into their system. So you at least know what they have. So the basic problem here is that you have little control over the project record, which is placing you in a situation that protecting your rights in the event of a conflict has been greatly degraded. And while we've not seen this use of the third-party portals in private work much, we are beginning to see this approach growing in the governmental sector of the industry. And, there's now a lot of projects that are, $5-10 billion is not a bad number. So when you get into these mega projects that are out there, even though you may be a sub on only about 10 to maybe $100 million, you're going to be sucked into this huge project that already has this network in place, and you're going to have to learn how to live inside of it. So here again, we tell you straight out, the best option is to avoid any kind of contract that has a third-party management portal. And if you're not willing to do that, make sure you're factoring the cost that it's going to take for you to maintain your own personal record at the same time maintaining their personal record. So, it's one of those things I hope we don't see much more of. But at the same time, you can understand why it is so beneficial, because it gives you this real-time scheduling component that nobody has been able to do up to this point. So I'll leave the subject to that. At least we've addressed it. If you start seeing it more often on your job sites, you may want to start talking it around with your managers and various other people to see how much that's happening, and to perhaps look into ways you can come about resolving the issue to maintain your own project record. if you follow all the things that we've gone through here, you're completely covered. But if you start letting the general contractor have all this information in lieu of us, that's when the whole thing changes legally as well as management-wise. So rather than continue this subject, we'll just move on to Chapter 7.